Yeet. Keep. The deck that utilizes its life total as a resource more aggressively than any other in the format. Death's Shadow is the gold standard when it comes to getting the most power per mana spent. It has discard, removal, counters, and the biggest 1-drops you'll ever see in Modern. Tempo is the name of the game here, and every card is a case study in hyper efficiency. Versus, an archetype as old as Magic itself. Ever since it was printed in Alpha, chucking lightning bolts at your opponent's face is the closest feeling we get to being actual wizards. Modern Burn may be straightforward, unleashing a barrage of firepower, but don't be fooled, this deck can pivot and play some serious defense too, while always threatening to end the game on the spot. If you like big mana and splashy bombs, hate micro decisions and complicated lines of play, you are in the wrong place, my friend. This is Modern Matchup Analysis, Death's Shadow versus Burn. Hey everyone, I'm Danny here at Snap Mulligan. So, what's a Modern Matchup Analysis? Well, it's simple. I believe knowing your deck is only half the battle in Magic. And that's why I've created this series where we're going to dive deep into both sides of popular matchups in Modern. We'll look at deck techs, metagame breakdowns, threat assessments, sideboard guides, and some gameplay. Whatever side you're on, I want you to feel completely comfortable navigating this matchup. I want to start off by thanking everyone who watched my first video, 4 Color Wars vs Blue-White Control. The responses were incredible, and you all had some really great ideas and feedback for what to improve on, and for what you want to see next. Now, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe and hit the bell icon, as it's a free way to support the channel. And please help spread the word. My goal here is to help as many Modern players as possible learn the ins and outs of these decks. One awesome suggestion I also got was that I should provide links to other videos showing this matchup on camera. You know, with pro players who don't pun as often or whatever. Noted. Look in the description below for some extra footage of the best in the world slugging it out with these two decks. Now, one last thing before we jump in. I did have a giveaway in my last video, and the winners have been notified via DM or an email. Thank you to everyone who helped spread the word. Your kind words made me feel amazing. Now, without further ado, here we go. I will try to effectively analyze one of the most complicated, intricate, tightrope walking matchups in the format. And I'm not scared at all. Yay? So what are we going to go over in these videos? First, we'll do a quick deck tech for each deck. Next, we will dive into the numbers of last month's metagame. I'll then go over my pregame ritual to get into the right mindset to play a game. Then, the fun stuff. We'll watch some matches, with maybe a pun or two. Then, we'll dig into each side's game plan for the other, including sideboards. Finally, we'll take a look at some interesting lines of play you might want to keep in mind. So let's dig into Boros Burn, and the story here is simple. You get your opponent from 20 to 0 as fast as possible while not needing any true combination of cards to win. While it can be incredibly straightforward, burn decks kind of get a bad rep for being simple or one-dimensional. But good burn pilots can pivot into a pseudo-control style until it's optimal to go upstairs for the kill. The important thing to remember is that this deck is looking to get the most damage per mana spent. So, you naturally start with the 1-drop creatures that are the cornerstone of a good burn hand. Goblin Guide is everything a burn player could ask for in a 1-drop. The first of the game deals 2 damage, 1 mana for 2 damage, a bit subpar, but every hit after that and you have one of the best burn spells ever printed and only escalates. If a guide hits 3 or more times, well, the burn deck isn't going to lose many of those games with that happening. Swift Spear is worse in some ways, but better in others. It's essentially a wash though, as they both put a ton of pressure on the opponent on turn 1, and often forces them into having a fast answer. The first turn Swift Spear getting it for 1 feels underwhelming, but every turn after, every untapped mana represents a prowess trigger, making blocking a very challenging decision. The fact that it has 2 starting toughness means that those prowess triggers make it very difficult to actually trade off with in the early game. Now, keeping up an answer to a fast 1-drop is something a lot of decks can do, but Eidolon of the Great Revel is a huge headache to many decks in the format. At the very worst, this card reads, red, deal 2 to your opponent, and they discard a removal spell. At best, this card is hitting your opponent for 2 for nearly every card they play. It is symmetrical, so there are instances where the damage you take matters, but opponents will have to make a tough decision about what to do with early removal spells. Now, let's start about the most efficient burn spells in the deck. 3 damage for 1 mana. Lightning Bolt is still the gold standard, hitting any target at instant speed. Lava Spike is a step down for sure, as it doesn't hit creatures and is sorcery speed, but it is still 3 for 1. Riftbolt can hit creatures, but Suspend 1 does make it tough to utilize properly, but still, 3 for 1 is where we want to be, and Skewer the Critics is the latest welcome addition to the deck. While conditional and sorcery speed, it is still a delightful 3 for 1 as well. Seeing these other 3 really make you appreciate the power and versatility of the OG Bolt. Now at 2 mana, these burn spells really need to pack a punch to make the cut. Boros Charm deals the most damage in the deck, and it is instant speed, but it only goes to the face. The other modes can be used in a pinch also. Lightning Helix is also instant speed, which is beautiful, and the life gain is often relevant in racing scenarios. Searing Blaze, while conditional on the land drop, does have the potential to deal the most total damage in the deck from a single card at 6, but it is split across a player and a creature. Skullcrack is a bit situational, but it is the gotcha card of the deck as it can be used at instant speed to prevent life gain. Where things got really fun for burn was when Modern Horizons dropped. The Horizon lands are perfect additions here, as the life loss doesn't really matter much as we are the aggressor, and historically the biggest burn killer was its own mana flood. There were so many moments where we were just praying to the top deck gods for that last burn spell while our opponent was sitting at 3 life. These lands let us get essentially free redraws once we start to flood. The rest of the mana base is straightforward. 4 Inspiring Advantages, as we rarely even want to be above 3 lands, 6 fetch lands and 2 Sacred Foundries, and 3 mountains. If you're not used to the deck, we do not run a single basic plains, as the deck often operates only on 1 or 2 lands, and if either of those lands doesn't produce red, it can be disastrous. To the sideboard, 2 Path to Exiles is necessary against problematic creatures like opposing Death Shadows and Gurmag Anglers, Urzas, and Mirror Breaking Core Firewalkers, etc. Rest in peace for Graveyard Shenanigans. Core Firewalkers are big game in the mirror, but note the double white though, it is tricky to get them out sometimes. It seems like a lot of burn players have come to accept that Deflecting Palm is a necessary, albeit grown-worthy card to include. When it works, like against opposing Ulamogs or Death Shadows, it feels like an insane magic card. The variance is just too high, and there are instances where you have it in hand when you would really just want another burn spell. Searing Blood can be one of the best burn spells in the format, versus go-wide strategies like Humans, Affinity, and Devoted Druid decks. Instant speed is a huge deal here. Skullcracks come in when life gain is a problem, and smash to smithereens for the abundance of artifact decks in the format. Based on metagame data, this is what the typical Death Shadow build looks like in today's world. When seeing these cards, it's important to remember that the deck does not want the game to go long, and it wants to do everything as efficiently as possible in the first few turns. Low CMCs, hyper efficiency is the name of the game here. Let's start with the namesake card Death Shadow. This deck is all about using your life total as a resource in exchange for being able to play the most power per mana spent in the format. And Shadow is the epitome of this. 1 mana for a creature that starts small and grows as the game goes on. It's not uncommon for this to be a 1 mana 10/10 after a few turns. Usually we go over the mana base last, but this deck utilizes fetch lands and shocks more aggressively than any other deck in the format, and it's a large part of the strategy. The idea is to use whatever resource possible, including lands, to get our life total under 13 to land a Shadow. We're looking at 10 fetches and 5 shocks, with a couple of basics as a necessity against Pass and Field of Ruins. In many ways, this deck mirrors traditional Jund strategies, that is, a turn 1 discard spell to make the opponent stumble, followed by a turn 2 or 3 landed threat that grows with the game and will just be bigger than theirs, and then use hyper efficient answers the rest of the way. That turn 1 discard spell of choice here is Thoughtseize, as it helps grow the Shadow and is the best discard spell in the format. Add in a couple of Inquisitions, and hitting a turn 1 discard spell is fairly consistent. Street Wraiths, Mishra Baubles, and Thought Scours provide us with more consistency through cantripping, with the Wraith doing double duty at helping out our Shadow grow. Thought Scour also has an important function in filling our graveyard because the only other real threat in the deck outside of Death Shadow is Gurmag Angler. The big zombie fish is a remarkable case study in just how powerful the delve mechanic is. Note to Wizards, if you print an otherwise vanilla 5/5 at common and it sees play in one of the most powerful formats in all of Magic, it's probably a sign that the mechanic on it is way too strong. This big guy does a great Shadow impression, often only costing a single black mana by himself. The truth of Modern is that a 5/5 is often just bigger than anything else the format is doing, which is why Tasigur, the Golden Fang, who used to be included in the deck, doesn't even see play anymore at 1 less power and even 1 less card to delve. So, once our threat is landed, the game plan is to interact a lot. Stubborn Denial becomes one of the best counters in the format with a threat down. Hitting creatures isn't often relevant because our landed threat is usually bigger and badder than whatever they're doing in the first 4 turns of the game. There are exceptions of course, but this becomes one of the best cards in the deck when turned on. Fatal Push, Dismembers, and a Bolt are the best at what they do for a single mana. Dismember also helps our Shadow game plan, and with Snapcasters in the mix, the fact that this deck doesn't want to go much above 3 mana in play, 1 mana removal is where we want to be. Cullen's Command is a great catch-all against problematic cards like Ensnaring Bridge and otherwise obscene artifacts in the format, and can also get our threats back in our hand, which is important because we essentially only run 8 real threats. We round out the main board with the big finisher, Temur Battle Rage. I'd argue that this is the card most opponents of Shadow decks are most afraid of. It always has to be accounted for because it is often just a one-shot that will end the game on the spot, doubling damage and trampling over any small early game blockers. So, to the sideboard. Rejections fit in nicely, as we like 1 mana answers, and this hits a variety of problems in the format like Tron, Eldrazi, Ensnaring Bridges, etc. Our Braids provide more artifact answers as well as small creature removal. Spell Snare is just great in this meta, as pretty much every deck has some amount of important 2-drops. Alpine Moon, costing 1 mana, is a big deal, and it hits against Tron and Valakut decks, with also some fringe other uses. An extra K command is great against artifact decks. Lily the Last Hope is fantastic at mowing down go-wide strategies, as chump blocking decks are actually fairly effective against us. Collective Brutality is just a burnt all-star, and it's especially necessary since that matchup is one of the trickiest tightropes to walk in all of Modern. Disdainful Stroke is needed against big mana decks that are trying to do bigger and meaner things than us. Plague Engineer is one of my favorite cards for Modern Horizons, and I love that decks like this are utilizing it so much. It's a house against tribal strategies, and it's huge game against Thopter Foundry decks as well. Again, token decks can be very problematic for this deck. Finish it off with Seasoned Pyromancer. It's been getting some love as it gives us some extra game against control decks in particular. Alright, let's take a look at what Shadow decks look like in the month of October. These are the 101 Shadow decks that either made top 8 in paper tournaments or 5-0'd MTGO leagues and are posted to MTG Goldfish and MTG Top 8. Now if you're not familiar, MTGO leagues don't post every 5-0 finish, as they try to cover a large range of archetypes. So for a given release, there could have actually been 4 Grixis 5-0s with a single Jund and a single Mardu, but they may only post a single instance of each. But with the given data available, here's the breakdown. I'll show you the count of decks each card appears in, and for each deck that runs at least 1 copy, I'll give you the average number of copies. Grixis builds continue to be the most popular at 45%, but Jund has definitely seen a strong push since Throne of Eldraine released, up to 29% of Shadow builds. Mardu still hasn't gone away either at 18%, and the other builds, mostly comprised of Simic Oko or builds with 4 or more colors, all also have the ability to spike an event. Let's kick it off with Grixis. This is the build that has been around the longest and has had the most consistent builds. In the main deck, you'll see 100% representation of the core of the deck from Shadow down to Dismember. The only real change over the course of the year has been the rise of Mishra's Bauble. Not long ago, baubles were nowhere to be found here. Now they're all the way up to 87% of decks as they feed anglers while making the deck more consistent. Serum Visions is another consistency card that has seen a rise as well, up to 69%. I was a little surprised to only see 60% of decks running K commands in the main, as this feels like one of the most powerful cards in the deck, but rest assured, if they aren't in the main, they're often in the side. Now, Jace Friend's Prodigy hasn't quite gotten the foothold in the main as a lot of players would like. There's a large contingent of Shadow players who swear by him, but the numbers here are not encouraging at only 24%. And a couple of Throne of Eldraine cards to keep an eye on are Drown in the Loch at 36% and the Royal Scions at 33%. I'd be shocked if Drown in the Loch wasn't a staple somewhere in the 75 here after another month or so. The Royal Scions I'm not quite as sold on, but I have seen it do some really fun things and it's certainly powerful. Difficult to say if this is just the experimental phase or if it's here to stay. But if Wizards is going to keep making 3-mana walkers that plus to 6 right away, you might as well run them. The land base here is incredibly consistent, hardly any variation at all. So we'll go to the sideboard, where Collective Brutality is a perfect fit here. Grixis players never leave home without it, and Plague Engineer at 89% is remarkable for a new card, and is such a monster against the go-wide token strategies that really give Shadow decks problems. It's very cool to see Alpine Moon getting some love at 33% also, as the 1-mana hate card fits in great here against the big mana decks. Now, looking at the Jund builds, not quite as streamlined here, but a few things to note if you're not used to this build. Traverse the Ulvenwald at 93% is still the consistency staple, but Once Upon a Time is surely going to see an uptick over the next few months, only sitting at 45% for now. Plague Engineers make it in the main deck here at 38%, while Dismembers take a backseat to Assassin's Trophies. Not much to discuss with the lands, but Jund Shadow players certainly bring the spice to the sideboard. No surprise to see Brutality and Collector Roof here, along with Engineer getting heavily represented in both the main and the side. More exciting though, to me, is Veil of Summer getting the love it deserves at 59%. And look at this, Yixlid Jailer up to 24%. Now if you don't know this card, I wouldn't blame you, but seriously, give it a look up, it's really wild. On to Mardu. Ranger Captain of Eos is still the main reason to play this build. Unearth at 94% is a card that should see way more play in this format, and I'm glad to see Mardu Shadow players taking notice. I was blown away to see that Hex Parasite was all the way up to 78%. It's just a really cool card in general, and being able to be tutored out by the captain makes it really amazing here. Only interesting note on the lands here is that the playset of Black and White Horizon lands make this a really nice bonus in this deck. To the sideboard, Wear Tear is a staple, and White also gets access to the ultra powerful Stony Silence. Kaya's Guile is a nice touch here at 56%, and Ashiok is a personal favorite of mine, also sitting at 56%. So, what did October's burn decks look like? Let's start with the tried and true Boros version. I mean, this is as streamlined as it gets. Even the newest players to the modern format will recognize this deck. You won't find any other deck in the format with this many 100% and 4-ofs, and the only thing to really note here is Skullcrack, which is coming in at 57% of decks. I see a lot of players moving away from this as they'd rather shore up a full playset of another card that's more popular. The land base here does see some variation though, with more and more players going up to 5 Horizon lands to help avoid late game mana flood. As for the board, Smash to Smithereens is an obvious 100%, as it is the go-to artifact removal spell that doesn't cost you any lost burn damage. Core Firewalker, as we mentioned, is the Mirror Breaker, and Path to Exile and Skullcrack are the other sideboard mainstays. After that That's where you do see a lot of variation. Nothing else is over 50% represented, so you can get creative here based on your meta. Exquisite Firecraft should see more play in my opinion, and I really like seeing Torpor Orb pop up in Modern. I'm always impressed when I run one in my decks. Now the next two decks aren't the focus of this video, but they are worth mentioning in the bird family. Here are what the prowess decks look like. They are much more reliant on the namesake creatures, as they just want to play as many fast spells as possible to pump them up. That's why you see the Manamorphos, Crash Throughs, and Lava Darts appearing in this list. And Bedlam Reveler is the late game card to refuel the hand for those lost points of damage. These decks can be insanely explosive, but do struggle against removal spells. And for those Red Mage purists, Mono Red Burn is an option as well. Seal of Fire is a cool add here, as it's a shock you can get out early and wait on, and Light of the Stage is another card that appears in all the non-Boros builds as well. I find a lot of Magic players neglect this step, but for me, getting into the right mindset to play a game of Magic is crucial to playing optimally. So before every match, I quickly recalibrate and try to make sure these 4 things are always at the front of my mind. 1. I'm spending my rare free time playing the best game ever made. Enjoy it. 2. I will actively focus on learning while playing. No mindless reps. 3. Never let wins and losses be your only metric for success. Value tight play and improvement. Be process-oriented. And 4. A real person who has their own unique struggles in life is sitting across from you. Above all, be kind. This step might seem silly to you, but I encourage you to at least try it out before you draw your next hand. On the rare day I find myself not having fun playing Magic, it's always because I lost sight of one of these. Okay, that was a lot of prep work, but let's get our hands dirty. Time for some games. Alright, hello everyone. We are back with some Grixis Death Shadow. And this hand looks great. Turn 1 Thoughtseize with a Stubborn Isle backup and an Angler. Yeah, the Thought Scour to get it in. I think this is a beautiful hand. So we will lead with a, just in case they're on something aggressive, we will start with a Swamp and see if we can get them off the back foot. All right, folks, here we go. This is, you guessed it, Burn. All right, well, that is a lot of Skewers, a Searing Blaze, a Lightning Helix, and a Swift Spear. The good news is everything in their hand costs 2, and because we don't have a backup removal spell, we have to take the Swift Spear here, and we're pretty happy about that, especially with all of these high CMC. High, isn't that funny? Burn. Discussing high CMCs, we're talking 2. But yeah, we will take the Swift Spear and pass the turn. Okay, now we have to play a little defensively. It's a very tricky tightrope to walk. Oh my goodness, that's the nightmare. Okay, they ripped another Swift Spear. Fair enough. All right, we're in a little bit of trouble here. So Swift Spear getting in. Double Angler is a miserable draw. Okay, so how do we win this? I think what we do is we go Delta, we wait past the turn, and then we're probably just going to have to Stubborn Denial a burn spell here. And if for whatever reason they don't rip one off, maybe they get another creature, then we just Thought Scour. And the Angler is going to block for days. Okay, another Swift Spear. So we took a Swift Spear, they ripped 2 off the top. Isn't that how it always goes? Okay, they're getting in. So that means Spectacle coming next. So we're going to go down to, well, actually we're not, because we're going to counter the Skewer. The Stubborn's not going to get much better. Yeah. So we will crack this. Get our island. Stubborn Denial the Skewer. Okay. Not out of the woods yet by any means. Okay, so we are at 14. Our opponent has Helix, Searing Blaze, and Skewer. Yeah, I mean, this actually worked out well. So now we can Thought Scour ourselves to get an Angler out and then play the Blood Crypt tapped, not take any more damage. Yeah, I mean, this is our best shot here. This member is not very good, obviously. So we will play out the big fish. Blood Crypt in, tapped. Okay. Now they will be able to kill this Angler, which is a problem, but they do have to waste a removal spell to do it. Arid Mesa. Cracks it. Searing Blaze, yep. Okay, so 3 to us and to our Angler. We will get to kill a Swift Spear. Yep, there's a Skewer. Oh, Skewer's the Angler. That makes more sense. Yep. Okay, well, here come the Swift Spears, taking us down to 5. And a Shadow is a great draw. The problem is... Okay, so I think what we're going to have to do is... Shadow and then Ambush Viper with the Snapcaster. This will... Alright, if they rip a burn spell, we're dead. But if they don't, our out is to get a Teamer Battle Rage, maybe? Alright, play Shadow. It's a big old boy. Come on, Ambush Viper. Man, could you imagine ripping a Battle Rage? Oh, this matchup is so nuts. So nuts. We even thought... Thoughtseize a turn 1 Swift Spear. Okay, here they come. Okay, Ambush Viper time. They do have another card in hand, so if it's just another burn spell, we're just dead. Yeah. Helix down to 2. What's the last card? Is it Bolt? Not a Bolt? Alright. Well, not dead. Teamer Battle Rage for the win. Oh my goodness. Battle Rage. Push. Well, let's be serious here. We can't even attack now because if they rip a Goblin Guide, we need to be able to deal with both. So I'm guessing this is like a Boros Charm in hand or something like that. But, yeah, I mean, this is all we can do is lean back. We just can't attack right now because that means any red spell off the top wins. At least in this case, if they rip a creature, we still have a chance. All right, 2 cards in hand. I'm guessing one's a burn spell. Let's see. Okay, Mountain. Oh, Leyline of Combustion. What is this? When you or at least one permanent you control becomes a target, it deals 2. Okay, so we won't be able to deal damage to anything, but before that comes down, we get to, let's just use our mana efficiently, kill the Swift Spear. Okay. Battle Rage for the win? Come on, Battle Rage. Oh, no. Okay, so we got to be careful. It's abilities, spell or abilities. So we can't bauble our opponent or else we die. But we can bauble ourselves and get an Angler out. Let's just make sure. You and or at least one permanent you control becomes a target. Okay, so we're free to bauble ourselves. Thoughtseize is terrible. Oh, no. We got to fade one more turn. And now we can't Angler either because we have to keep up the push. Oh, no. Actually, push doesn't even matter because of the ley line. So, yeah, we just play our Angler and pray. Actually, yeah, that wouldn't even matter because if we played the Angler, it's a blocker. So we're good. Okay, so land off the top. Land off the top. Land off the top. Oh, come on. No burn spell. Draw a card. Yes, Thoughtseize. We knew that. Okay. Land? Not a Horizon land? Whoa, that was nice. Whew. Yeah. This is how this matchup goes, and my heart was pounding. This is a matchup that is not good for the heart. That was a fantastic, fantastic game. And I think we played that right. Played defensively at the start. Now, obviously, yes, I understand. High variance matchup here. The burn player had to get very unlucky, our opponent did, to not rip a burn spell at the top. But that is how this matchup goes. You have to play to your outs like that. Otherwise, you can't just give away free points. You just have to play tight and hope for the best. That is the Shadows kind of mantra in this matchup. Okay, so we're bringing in Spell Snare. It's a great counter. We are going down the Street Wraiths and Dismembers immediately. Those are the first things out. Coming in, Brutality is the best single card against burn we have. Bringing a K command. It's not great, but it is just better than... Actually, no. We will keep the K command out, and we'll keep it like this. So, yeah. So, the way we sideboard here, Spell Snare, Brutalities. Not bringing a ton in. Actually, yeah. Colican's command in. Actually, we're just going to bring in Plague Engineers. It's more of they're just better than any of the other cards available. But the big ones, Collective Brutality is what we want to see. This hand is... Man, if one of these Stubborn Denials was a removal spell, we would love this hand. Opponent just Gave us 4 asterisks, so I wonder if they meant to mulligan. That's a great comment from our opponent. He goes, I don't know if this is terrible or amazing. And it's amazing how thin that line actually is between the two. Okay, so the problem is if they have a creature heavy hand, we just die. But on the back of a Thought Scour and 2 stubs is kind of big game here. So I think we're going to keep this. I don't like it. Okay, oh my goodness. Ley line. Whoa! Holy smokes. The triple ley line of combustion hand. Okay. Alright, Sacred Foundry down. Now, if this is a creature, we're still in trouble here. Yeah, that's actually awesome for our opponent. Okay, well, we need a angler down fast. Come on, land. Reveals a angler. Oh my god, 3rd angler. Woo! Okay, opponent, here we go. So, the thing is, I think we have to shock ourselves here. They're down to 2 cards in hand, and we will probably be able to counter any burn spell they try to throw at our face. And then even if they don't, we Thought Scour to get our angler going. So this is going to hurt to shock ourselves, but we are going to do it. And we'll pass the turn, because we just can't deal with this Goblin Guide with these ley lines out. We cannot take 6 off a Fatal Push. Okay, here comes the guide. Give us a land, please. The good thing is we'll be able to see if we don't like the top card. Thought Scour. Number 2. I think we need action rather than more dirtling around. So we are going to mill ourselves and mill that in. We were going to do that anyway, but this is actually good that we know we don't really want that. Thoughtseize. Oi. So here's the thing about Thoughtseize in this matchup. It actually isn't the worst card ever, because what ends up happening is, yeah, sometimes it's just you take a bolt and you just save yourself a life and use a mana. But other times, if you can hit like an Eidolon on turn 1, it is actually worth it. It is going to save you all that damage in the long run. So you don't want to take Thoughtseizes out, mostly because you have better things to take out like Street Wraiths and whatnot. Okay, well, Shadow is a big deal. That's a good draw. Okay, let's think. If we Bloodstained Mire and go Suicide, Shadow becomes just a 2/2. We can't risk that dying yet. We can't get out a angler yet either. And Thoughtseize, Thoughtseize would actually deal 8 to us. We need to get a threat down. This is so nuts, but I wonder if it's worth it to Thoughtseize ourselves, get one of these stupid anglers out of our hand, because we just have to land it. Now we'll take 3, 4, well, so 1 from the Mire and 2 from the Thoughtseize. This is how insane this matchup is right now. We'll go down to 11 and have to pass the turn. Or will we? So let's see. Bloodstained Mire is the 4th card in the yard once we crack it. We'll have 4 in the yard. With the Swamp, we play a Thoughtseize. Thoughtseize our own angler. That's 6 cards in the yard and 11 life with an angler in play. I think that's the line. Holy smokes. Okay, now doing that does leave up no mana, which means we can't use Stubborn Denial, but they only have 1 land in play. So at worst, we'll go down to, I guess if they draw a land, we'll go down to 11, down to 7. But with an angler in play, 7's all right with backup Stubborn Denials next turn. Okay, check out this bananas play. Bloodstained Mire, crack it, get our Swamp, Thoughtseize ourselves, discard an angler. That gets 6 cards in the yard, and then we play a second angler. All right, that was the line. Holy smokes. Okay, we're at 11. So let's see. If they have Bolt in hand, followed by a land and a Boros Charm, that only gets us down to 4. And with a blocker up, we'll have Stubborn Isles up next turn. Okay, this is ridiculous. I kind of love it. All right, I think they have to get in to threaten a Lightning Bolt on our angler. Okay, so I think that just means they don't have it. So they must just have a handful of 2-drops and missing their lands. Okay. Oh my goodness, we're golden now. Yeah, we play the Shadow. Well, yeah, we'll play the Shadow, and then we'll Stubborn Denial whatever burn spell they have. Oh, wait, let's see. Does combustion... Okay, whenever you or a permanent you control becomes a target, not a spell on the stack. So Stubborn Denial is still perfect. Scared myself there for a second. Okay, pass the turn. To combat. Okay. Oh, Battle Rage that we can't play. Okay. Well, I think what we do now is go to combat. Get in with the angler. And if they do, we're totally good with the trade. Okay, perfect. Guide down. Now, if they try to bolt here, Stubborn Denial saves the angler. Okay. I think we're in really good shape now. Okay, another guide. Okay, so that's probably why they were okay with blocking there. Passing. Okay, well, Thought Scour's okay. We're kind of in the same boat here. With them stuck on a land, this is really important. So we're just going to keep getting in. Okay, more blocks. Yep. Pass the turn. So we've been very fortunate here because our opponent was missing land drops. Okay, so 5 cards in hand. Shocks in. And for them not to have had to hit a Path to Exile either, which is a card they bring in against us, it's been a big deal. Lava Spikes our face. Okay. This actually makes us live do a Battle Rage now. So if we just rip a fetch land, we win. Thoughtseize. Okay, we can't do that. Okay, we just get in. Yep. Attack with both. We might have punted that by not playing our Thought Scour. I was just... Okay, they did have a path. We will Stubborn Denial that. They can't kill us with 2 burn spells next turn. The most they can do is 7. So we will Stubborn Denial that. Get in for 10. Okay, pass the turn. If they had the path, they were just waiting to use it anyway. Okay, now there's no way they can deal 8 damage, Helix. Okay, it does gain them life. That's fair. Skewer down to 2. Okay. Well, good game, opponent. This was a beautiful win. Yeah, let's just get in. Really good games from our opponent. Alright, hello everyone. We are here with another mediocre Grixis Death Shadow hand. And this is frustrating because it's fairly... It's okay. The discard would have really made it nice. We really need a threat though. I guess on the back of 2 redraws and 1 removal spell we'll keep it. But man, this is the reason why Shadow is really in a rough spot. You really have to have that perfect blend of cards for it to really hum. So we will cycle a Street Wraith. Play a Watery Grave. Shock it in. That way we can keep up Scour or Fatal Push. Sunbaked Canyon. And there's a Swift Spear. Oh boy. Hold on, folks. It's burn. Alright, coming in hot. So the Street Wraith start was super unfortunate, but we do have an answer here. So that is very fortunate. Okay, now we need to be able to play this a little defensively. We will start with a Bloodstained Mire, and I have no problem at all using this Snapcaster as an Ambush Viper. Let's see if we have to. Creature control is really important for the Shadow side of this matchup. Inspiring Vantage. Riftbolt suspended. Okay. That will come to the face next turn. Okay, now we need to be very careful here. No second creature is a big deal. That's really good. This Dismember is pretty much dead for now. So we will Thought Scour ourselves. Inquisition is beautiful draw. Oh, we're getting a little lucky here. We do need threats still. So let us go get our Blood Crypt. Intapped. And we draw. Scalding Tarn. Well, we will... So the thought is actually we could just keep up Snapcaster, Fatal Push, but I think when we can get a free shot at a burn spell, we need to take it. So we will do that here. Okay, Skewer, Searing Blaze, Lava Spike, Boros Charm. So Charm and Spike only go to the face. Blaze will hit creatures also and is an instant. So it's between Skewer the Critics and Searing Blaze. The plus side for them with Skewers, that's only going to cost 1, and they can do Riftbolt, Skewer, Lava Spike next turn for 9 damage, getting us down to 6. Part of me just wants to take the Skewer because it costs less, but giving the Teamer Battle Rage, or giving the Searing Blaze an opportunity to hit the Snapcaster is not fun either. This is a tough one. Yeah, with no creature in hand, we don't have to Ambush Viper, so I think we'll let them pay the double for the Searing Blaze, and we'll take the Skewer. I guess there's a thought to just taking Boros Charm, but the 1-mana spells are really what add up quick. Yeah, I think we need to just make them use as much mana as possible, although mana is not really an issue for them. Take the Skewer. Make them use up all their mana, and then we will... There's no real need to Scalding Tarn yet, so we'll just play the island and pass the turn. We might not even have to crack that. Okay, pass the turn. We need a threat, and we need it fast, because we are not going to survive this. All right. Rift Bolt to the face, yep. Bloodstain Mire. Another Bolt suspended. Okay, well then I think what we do this turn, if we don't get a threat, we just Snapcaster Inquisition. Will save us 1 burn spell. Inquisition our opponent. Bloodstain Mire cracked. This probably means Boros Charm to the face. Or if they're just worried about Snapcaster. Okay, that's fair. And we get to take a Boros Charm. At this point now, the mana doesn't really matter. We're in bad shape because we just need to hit a Shadow. So Rift Bolt, Lava Spike. Player Watery Graven tapped and passed the turn to 6 off the Bolt. Yep. Lava Spike to the face. Did they hit the third? Yep. Good game, Burn. That is exactly how this sometimes goes. We really needed to hit a threat more than anything. Otherwise, there's no way we run them out of cards. Okay, so they are going to bring in Path to Exiles and maybe a Rest in Peace. They will probably bring in a Deflecting Palm, and if they run Bridge, they'll bring it in. So there is a thought. You need to bring in the K commands just for the Bridge. Spell Snare is just great. 1 mana Blanca burn spell. Brutality is the single best card we can have in this matchup, so we'll bring those in. The cards we go down immediately are Street Wraith and Dismembers. So the only other 2 cards I would want possibly are Abrades. No, I'm going to do... Yeah, Abrades do deal with creatures. Let's do that. So it's not great. Abrade is probably the 59th and 60th card in this matchup. Okay. Game 2 against Burn. And this is almost beautiful. We do need a threat, but man, we are always keeping a Collective Brutality hand against Burn. There is a really interesting thought to playing on the draw against Burn. Keeps them down a card, and being able to play reactive to whatever they're trying to do is a really big deal. But I am just going to stay on the play, try to stay a little aggressive here. If they do a turn 1 creature, like a Swift Spear, I think it's too cute to wait for the Brutality. I think we are just going to get our Swamp and Fatal Push. We will get a redraw, see what they've got coming next. Another Swift Spear incoming. Okay, we do have an Abrade and a Brutality for that, so things are looking good on that front. There is a Swift Spear incoming. All right, double Abrade means we are just going to use 1 on this Swift Spear incoming. We are going to shock ourselves for it. I think that's worth it. That way we use our mana efficiently on their turn. So we will play a Blood Crypt and pass. We don't have any basic mountains, remember. And this way with the Prowess trigger, even if they do get it off, if they Swift Spear and Lightning Bolt, something like that, the Abrade still takes care of it. Even better. Okay, we definitely need to kill that. So the question is, do we kill it now and then keep up? I think we do. I think we're just going to use our mana efficiently here. We will take our beats off the Eidolon. Okay, that makes this really interesting. So the question is, when do we actually deploy it? So it's obviously not now because we crack, fetch, do 3 points of damage, and he's only a 1/1. So we'll play the Scalding Tarn and pass. Keep the status quo up as this Swift Spear is still coming. Swiss Spear down. Now, they can double bolt here and get the Swiss Spear out of range, but we do have a Stubborn Denial for the second one, so I think that is what we're going to do about it. Abrade. Force them to rip off 2 bolts here. It will save the Swiss Spear, but we will counter 1. Okay, that's even better. Alright, Eidolon, we're still okay. Yep, that's fine. We'll go get a Watery Grave. And now the Brutality is amazing. We almost kind of just want to land something benign to discard here to Brutality. That works. Yeah, we'll do the 2 modes. The life gain is not really where we want to be. We will kill the Eidolon and get a card out of their hand. This is big game. Discard the Bauble. We will take some damage. Skewer, Skewer, Helix. Well, the good news is they're going to have to pay full price for the Skewer. So we'll take the Helix. Still can't throw down the Shadow yet, unfortunately. These Sunbaked Canyons are annoying. They are going to get a lot of redraws here. Okay, so nothing yet. Now this is kind of that weird stalemate part of the game. The good news is Skewers are sorcery speed. So I think this is kind of a refill turn for them. They're probably going to crack one of these canyons and Stubborn Denial. Yeesh. Okay. Well, just gotta hang back. No point in getting our only threat killed right now. This is where this matchup really gets interesting. Yep, there goes the Sunbaked Canyon. This is why this is one of the most amazing cards in the world for Burn these days. The previous problem with Burn was just their own flood killed them a lot of times. Another Eidolon, no. Oh, that's really bad news. We had answers for a lot of creatures. Yikes. Okay, well, Eidolon down. You got it. 3 cards in hand, 2 are Skewers. Eesh. Okay. So when we play the Shadow, we go down to 10 automatically. But then the weird thing about it is when they try to kill it or bolt it, our Stubborn Denial that we will pay for will grow the Shadow big enough, but we will take a hit off of that also. It's not great, but I think this is the way to play it. That second Eidolon. Oh, that is so brutal. Okay, well, here we go. Big draw here. Angler. That's actually a fantastic draw. That might have been the best draw in the entire deck. Okay, so let's get rid of some fluff in the yard. Go down the Abrade. That was absolutely the best draw in the deck. Now, I'm almost tempted to just play out the Shadow also. Yeah, we'll play the Shadow now because we can do exactly what we said last time. Go down to 10, because we just need to start getting some beats in. Yep, so go down to 10. And all of our Stubborn Denials are turned on. Okay, that Eidolon was great for them, but that Angler was just the perfect counter. We got super, super lucky. I am not even going to pretend like we didn't. Okay, so Bolt to the face. Countering it just does 2 damage to ourselves anyway. Yeah, so there's no point in countering that. We'll just... we'd only save 1 point of life by doing that. So they take 2 from the Eidolon. It is symmetrical. We go down to 7, and our... So I think Rage wins it for us off the top. These Skewers are still full price. They're going to have to rip... Okay, that's fine. Swift Spear's good. We can certainly handle that. And just 2 Skewers. Okay, we're in really good shape now. Now we just need to figure out how we're attacking, because we can't just swing all out. We'll play the Bloodstained Mire. So 2 Skewers in hand. We're just going to... The problem is they have a Sunbaked Canyon also. So this turn is probably just going to be spent for them redrawing anyway. Oh, this is a rough spot. So, okay, so if we swing with both, they have to block 1 or they die. If they choose just to block the Shadow, Angler gets in for 5, and they have a... No, they probably... If they think we have Stubborn Denials, they probably keep the Eidolon back and block with Swift Spear. So let's say we attack with both. Swift Spear blocks Shadow. 5 in. Eidolon gets in for 2. Skewer kills us, and we can't Stubborn them because we'll take 2. Unfortunately, I think we're just stuck now, and this is that awful spot where we're just praying for Teamer Battle Rage. Yeah. I guess the thought is maybe we force them to make the mistake, and maybe they block with the Eidolon. I don't think they do, though, so we can't assume our opponent just makes a mistake. Okay, that's a little frustrating. But here we are. I'm surprised they didn't crack the Sunbay Canyon. I think that was a small punt on their part. Yeesh, Lava Spike. Okay, Lava Spike down to 4. Actually, I think we're just dead. Oh, man. Okay, yeah, we're just dead. What I was thinking was I had a Stubborn Denial to prevent us from taking any damage, but the life loss from the Eidolon off the Stubborn Denial would have also counted. Yeah, yep. Well, this was a great game. This is exactly how Burn needs to win, and they did it. Yep. And now they have one final Skewer the Critics in hand that we have to take 2 off of. Oh, man. That was a really good game, Burn opponent. Nicely done. Well, good game. You done did it. And a lot of times that's what happens. We're just kind of praying for Teamer Battle Rage. Yeah, that was a good job. Good game. As a Burn player, what are we bringing in against Death Shadow decks? The single most important card in the sideboard is Path to Exile. Quite simply, the Grixis Shadow player in particular cannot beat us without one of their 2 main creatures, Death Shadow or Gurmag Angler. Against Jund Shadow, it's a very similar story, except it's shadows and goyfs. Although with Traverse the Uvenwald and Once Upon a Time, it isn't quite as brutally effective against Jund, as they have more redundancy in landing a large threat. Grixis Shadow players will wisely hold up a Stubborn Denial along with their landed threat, knowing that a path will ruin their entire game plan. Mardu players are a little bit different. They'll go a little wider and lower to the ground, so it's often easier to play defensively against them as your burn spells carry more removal potential on their own. But for the big guys, Path to Exile is essential. Against Grixis and Jund, Rest in Peace serves the same purpose. It nullifies the non-shadow threat. It is more effective against Grixis as they never will have more than 4 lands in play, so anglers are flat out dead cards in hand. Also, they don't carry any other enchantment removal outside of a Stubborn Denial when you cast it. Jund can have answers to a landed Rest in Peace, but their Tarmogoyf staying at 0-1 until they are forced to find a removal spell usually buys us the time we need. Deflecting Palm will give you mixed results, but in this matchup in particular, it is often a game ender. One important thing to remember with this is that it will only work on the first strike side of damage from a Teamer Battle Rage, threatening double. So if you're at 10 life and they swing with a Ragey Angler, this won't win you the game on the spot. You'll both take 5, which is still a fine deal. Exquisite Firecraft is also great against the Grixis builds, as Stubborn Denial might just be their single best card against us. Now what do we take out? The first cut is Rift Bolts, as Sorcery Speed with a delay is not where we want to be in this matchup. Skewer the Critics is also Sorcery Speed, so that can go as well. But if you'd rather cut down on the higher CMC spells, Searing Blaze would be the first cut. We don't want to take out too much as our main plan is still to be very top heavy with burn spells. For the burn game plan, the amount of lands in your hand can dictate how you might want to play the game. If you're flooded with 3 or more lands, it can be better to play the match at a more controlled pace and force them to do their own damage when possible. If you keep a traditional burn hand with 1 or 2 lands, it's pedal to the metal as normal. But the ideal opening always is for us to land creatures fast. When burn lands its creatures and they can connect multiple times, that is when the burn side becomes strongly favored. Now they want us to do the work for them. Our spells become much more important and powerful once they get below 13 life. It can often be right to hold back a bit until they make their first aggressive moves, especially if our hand isn't the perfect burn start. Now the best card against us is Stubborn Denial, as it messes up all of our math as we're trying to figure out how to close out the game where every turn matters. Also, always be aware of Street Wraith tricks. Shadow players may try to bait you into killing a 2/2 or 3/3 shadow with a bolt, only to instant speed lose some life and save it. It isn't unreasonable to use 2 burn spells on an angler or a goyf. Now this isn't ideal obviously, but it does come up. What you really want to do is attack a Goblin Guide into it and then use a single burn spell to finish it off. But Stubborn Denial always makes that, or using 2 burn spells on it, a very risky gamble. But if it is a last resort, you may need to. Now whenever possible, we want to be playing on their turn at instant speed. Making them tap out on their turn is crucial, especially when trying to land that final blow. Now also worth noting, Death Shadow can be a tricky card rules-wise. Let's quickly go over how it interacts with Searing Blaze. Let's say they're at 10 life with a 3/3 Shadow and we hit a land drop. Now I'm not a judge, but here goes my best explanation. Feel free to elaborate on this in the comments below. The damage from Searing Blaze is dealt to the opponent and the Shadow at the same time. The next time the game would check for state-based actions is after resolution of the spell. State-based actions would then check for their life total, Shadow's toughness, and lethal damage at the same time, so Shadow would have 3 damage marked on it, but would have a toughness of 6. The Death Shadow survives, and we are very sad. Now maybe I didn't explain the rules part perfectly, but that is the end result, so make sure you're aware of it. So what's the sideboard plan for Shadow versus Burn? Let's actually start with what we're taking out. Street Wraiths are flat out horrendous cards in this matchup. Burn does not need any extra help getting our life total closer to 0. Now the interesting next cuts are between Thoughtseize and Dismember. Thoughtseize is actually not as bad as people think against Burn. Inquisition is obviously a ton better, but in this matchup you have to consider the alternatives. A turn 1 Thoughtseize that hits a Goblin Guide does cost you 2, but that guide was most likely going to do at least 4 damage to you. Or even better, think about how much you'd love to take that Eidolon of the Great Revel, which was going to deal 2 to you anyway when you try to cast the removal spell on it. Now, if all they have is Burn in hand, this takes a Burn spell, and then it roughly equates to a card that says black, sorcery, gain 1 life, see opponent's hand. Not good obviously, but it is usable. Where Thoughtseize really falls flat though is late game. It is the worst top deck in the entire deck, and because of this, it is the reason why you want to cut 2 of these before the Dismembers. But you do want to stay at 4 total discard spells. What Dismember really has going for it is that it can be held late game as a 3-mana removal spell, and if the Burn player is trying to top deck that final bit of damage, this still has utility then against the Goblin Guide or a Swift Spear coming off the top. So what comes in? Hands down, Collective Brutality is Burn's Nightmare. All 3 modes are relevant. The -2/-2 hits every creature in their deck, it gets rid of their best burn spell in their hand, and the third mode of Draining 2 is often fairly relevant as well, although it's not always worth discarding the second card for, but bring in all of these that you got. Counterspells are great here as they mess with the math, Spell Snare is excellent, and Sunless still run Negate, and the new Toy Drown in the lock serves double duty here as both a creature removal spell and a counter. Other than that, we want to focus in on creature control. An easy way for Burn to win these games is for a single creature that deals 4+ damage. Limit each of these creatures to 2 or less and we stand a good chance. That means it is worth it to bring in the extra K commands and Abrades. No, they aren't fantastic, but they are better than the Dismembers. The real problem with these is that they usually force you to go get a red mana early, which can often mean shocking yourself when you don't want to. These also help with the Rogue Burn deck, packing in Snaring Bridges in the side. Now, she has fallen out of favor in many Grixis builds, but Liliana of the Veil can be a nuisance as well, as she forces the Burn player to play their burn spells rather than hoard them. The Jund side of things does get a nice tasty treat in Weather the Storm, which is a real feel-bad card for Burn. Just be careful if you're relying on a Death Shadow not to kill your only threat in the process with the life gain. And Mardu does have access to Kaya's Guile, where the life gain is obviously relevant and getting rid of a creature at instant speed is big game. So here are some things to keep in mind as a Shadow player for this matchup. Keep in mind this section mostly focuses on a Grixis Shadow build, but I'll try to note the Jund and Mardu variants where needed. I cannot stress this enough. The Shadow player loses this game without a threat. Make them remove your threat. Don't give them a free win by keeping a hand without one to begin with. You cannot expect to run them out of burn spells by playing defense the whole time. So mulligan aggressively here. The best hands contain both a threat and a stubborn denial. Here's a general guideline for your discard spell targets. First, hit the creatures, Eidolon first and foremost. This is almost always true unless of course you have a grip full of creature removal spells. Next should be the Lightning Bolt, as it's way too efficient at 1 mana. And then your next target should be the instant speed spells like Boros Charms. The lowest priority stuff for discard targets is the sorcery speed. Now keep in mind this changes a bit post-board, and their sideboard cards like Path and Rest in Peace are often the next highest priority outside of things like Eidolon. The next tip is that you shouldn't deploy a Shadow until you hit 9 life, or at least can get there at instant speed with a Fetch or a Street Wraith. Their burn spells can only do at most 3 damage to a creature. Never let them trade a bolt for one of your precious threats. Another reason to wait until it's at least a 4/4 is so your stubborn denials are more ferocious. If you can play a slower defensive game, Gurmag Angler is the creature you want to prioritize. It has the nice bonus of not being hit by an Eidolon when you cast it. If the game starts slipping and you can't control your life total, playing to your outs with a Death Shadow and a Temur Battle Rage is a perfectly acceptable line of play, even if it is more risky. Knowing when to pivot from defense to offense is a huge part of this match. Ideally, we want them to be doing the work for us, and we can help the cause by smartly using our fetch lands. Instead of fetching and shocking, we should play it slower and fetch at their end step. This also allows us to shuffle the top card of our deck away if the Goblin Guide reveals something unhelpful. Now, as a general rule when playing a Grixis Shadow build, always use your polluted deltas last and fetch out Watery Graves first. The reason is, you only need red later in the game, and everything relevant early is blue or black. And by saving your polluted deltas for last, you can still get your only island or swamp as you only run 2 basics. Now, here's a controversial take on the Shadow game plan, but one I like. Choose to be on the draw once you know it's burned. This is beneficial for a few reasons. 1, it keeps them down a card over the course of the game and you're up a card, meaning you get another answer most likely. And these matchups often come down to a top deck draw from the burn player. Also, being able to play reactively to what the burn player leads with is pretty important. And if they have to play it slow with a land flooded hand, that's all for the better. The last thing the burn player wants to see is a high life total and a Gurmag Angler in play, for instance. Now, obviously, playing on the draw can backfire, as a few dropped Goblin Guides hitting the field quickly can be the death of us. But there is some merit to this, and it is something to seriously consider. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying to always choose to be on the draw, but what I am saying is to give it some serious thought. In my Goldfish testing, I played 30 post-sideboard games, meaning the opponent was known, 15 on the play and 15 on the draw. The Shadow side only won 6 of the 15 games when on the play, but it won 10 of the 15 when on the draw. Now this is still a fairly small sample, but going from 40% to 67% over 30 games, that's not insignificant. It just really did feel better on the draw from the Shadow side, but I urge you to try this for yourself and come to your own conclusion. I certainly hope you enjoyed this video, as it was a really fun one for me to put together, but I could not have done it without the amazing volunteer consultants from the Burn and Shadow communities on Facebook. They spend a lot of their free time collaborating on everything we discussed here, and they were a lot of fun to work with. That makes this for a good time for suggestions for future videos and for future volunteers. If there's a particular matchup you want to see, please comment below. And if you feel well versed in the deck and want to be a part of this, I would love to contact you for help in a future video. Just let me know in the comments, and I'll be sure to message you, as I cannot possibly make these videos as comprehensive as they are without your expert knowledge. So, thank you all for watching. Above all else, be good to each other out there, and I will see you next time.